Take a slow breath. Let your heart be still for a moment. This is not just a story from the Bible. This is a whisper meant for you, especially for those who have walked long with God. There is something deeply comforting about the word blessing. For many who are older in faith, the word carries memories. A praying father, a gentle mother, a church bench worn smooth by years of faithful sitting, hands folded in prayer when life felt uncertain. In the Bible, blessings were never casual words. They were not polite wishes. They were sacred transfers spoken once, remembered forever. The patriarchal blessing was one such mystery, passed from father to child, from one generation to the next. It carried more than words. It carried identity, destiny, and divine promise. Abraham received it first. An old man, with a tired body and a hopeful heart. God spoke to him not when he was young and strong, but when his future seemed almost finished by human standards. And that alone should bring peace to your heart. Because God has never measured purpose by age. Abraham did not receive God's promise in his youth. He received it when he had already lived a long life. When he had seen disappointment. When he had waited longer than he ever imagined. God said to him, "I will bless you, and you shall be a blessing." Notice something gentle here. God did not rush Abraham. He did not scold him for being old. He did not say, "You are too late." Instead, God spoke a blessing that would outlive Abraham himself. Many older believers quietly wonder, have my best days passed? Is God finished with me? Was my life enough? Abraham's story answers softly. God's blessings do not expire with age. When Isaac grew old, his eyes dim and his strength fading, he knew something important was still left to do. He had to bless his son. Isaac did not write a letter. He did not leave instructions. He spoke the blessing. Because in ancient times, spoken words carried spiritual weight. What was spoken could not be taken back. This speaks deeply to older hearts. Even when the body weakens, even when the voice trembles, your words still carry power. A blessing spoken in faith can travel farther than strong legs ever could. Jacob received the blessing under unusual circumstances. And yet, once spoken, it stood firm. Later in life, Jacob himself became old. His body bore the marks of struggle. He had limped through life, literally and spiritually. But when Jacob placed his hands on his sons and grandchildren, something beautiful happened. His physical strength was limited, but his spiritual authority was complete. He leaned not on muscle, but on memory, faith, and God's faithfulness. This is important for those who feel weaker now. You may not move as fast. You may not see as clearly. But your spiritual sight can be sharper than ever. The patriarchal blessing was never only about land or wealth. It was about continuity. It said, "What God began in me, He will continue through you." Many older Christians worry about what they will leave behind. Not money, not property, but meaning. God understands this concern. That is why blessings were passed near the end of life. Because the end is not empty. It is full of purpose. Your prayers still matter. Your faith still speaks. Your quiet trust still comforts heaven. God has always trusted older hands with sacred things. Moses was old when he led. Abraham was old when he believed. Jacob was old when he blessed. Anna was old when she recognized the Messiah. Age in God's kingdom is not decline. It is depth. You carry stories that angels have watched. You carry prayers that heaven remembers. And the same God who honored the patriarchs still honors faithful hearts today. Take a moment. Let this settle into your spirit. This is only the beginning. As we go deeper, let your heart remain open. These words are not rushed. They are meant to rest gently, like an old hymn that still knows your name. In the ancient world, blessings were not spoken from a distance. They were given face to face, hand to head, skin to skin. When a patriarch placed his hands upon his child, it was a sign of transfer. Not power of the body, but authority of the Spirit. For those who are older, this image speaks deeply. Hands that once worked hard, hands that raised children, hands that carried burdens silently. Those same hands were trusted by God to pass on blessing. Even today, God still honors the language of faithful hands. When Joseph brought his sons to Jacob, Jacob's eyes were weak with age. He could barely see. Yet Scripture tells us something powerful. Though his eyes were dim, his spiritual insight was clear. Jacob crossed his hands intentionally. He did not bless by tradition. He blessed by discernment. This tells us something comforting. You may feel that time has taken much from you. Strength, speed, clarity. But spiritual discernment often grows with age. God sharpens the inner vision when the outer vision fades. The modern world celebrates youth, speed, visibility, noise. But God has always worked differently. Patriarchal blessings were not given to the strongest or the loudest. They were given to those who had walked long enough to know God's voice. If you have lived through storms, losses, prayers that took years to be answered, you are not behind. You are prepared. When Jacob blessed his sons, he spoke not only about the future, but about the past. He reminded them of the God who fed him, protected him, and carried him through fear. This is important for older believers. Your memories are not just stories. They are testimonies. When you speak of what God has done, you strengthen faith, not only in others, but in yourself. There is a reason God often uses older people to speak final blessings. They have learned patience. They have learned surrender. They know the cost of faith. Their words are slower, but heavier. Their prayers are quieter, but deeper. Heaven listens closely to voices that have trusted God for a lifetime. Many faithful believers quietly fear becoming irrelevant, unneeded, forgotten. But Scripture shows something else. At the moment when the patriarch could do least physically, he did most spiritually. Blessing is not about activity. It is about alignment. And alignment with God does not fade with age. Even if your world has become smaller, a room, a chair, a window, your faith still speaks loudly in the spiritual realm. The patriarchal blessing reminds us God values finishing well more than starting strong. Let your heart rest here for a moment. Stay with these words gently. They are meant to heal, not to hurry. Like evening light through a familiar window. They come quietly, but they stay. One of the deepest fears in later life is the feeling of slowly disappearing. Less strength, less recognition, less usefulness. But Scripture tells a different story. In God's design, the end of life is not a fading away. It is a holy narrowing. God removes what is unnecessary, so what truly matters can speak clearly. The patriarchs were not strongest at the end. They were clearest. When Isaac blessed Jacob, he knew his time was closing. When Jacob blessed his sons, he gathered them intentionally. Blessing requires courage. The courage to release control. To trust God with what comes next. Many older believers struggle here. You have carried responsibilities for decades. Letting go feels unnatural. But blessing is not losing control. It is entrusting the future to God. In youth, authority is often loud. In age, it becomes quiet. But quiet does not mean weak. The authority of the patriarch came from years of walking with God, not from position or energy. If you have prayed through decades, you carry this same quiet authority. Heaven recognizes it. A patriarchal blessing was not rushed. It was thoughtful, personal. It said, I see who you are. I see what God has placed within you. I trust God with your tomorrow. For those who feel they can no longer do much, this truth brings peace. You may still bless. And blessing is one of the greatest acts of love. God waits until the end. Because life teaches discernment. Pain teaches compassion. Waiting teaches trust. Loss teaches eternity. The patriarch spoke from experience, not theory. That is why the blessing carried weight. Your life experience is not a burden. It is a treasury. If you feel tired, remember this. Jacob leaned on his staff when he blessed. Moses climbed the mountain slowly. Anna waited in the temple for years. God never hurried them. God is not hurrying you either. Even if your voice shakes. Even if your hands tremble. Even if your steps are slow. Your faith still strengthens the spiritual foundations of those who come after you. The patriarchal blessing reminds us. The greatest work often happens when life appears to be winding down. Let this rest in you. Let these words come slowly, like a familiar prayer before sleep. They are not meant to excite the mind, but to calm the soul. One of the quiet misunderstandings about life is the belief that when our strength slows, our influence stops. But patriarchal blessings reveal a holy truth. Blessings move forward even when the blesser rests. Abraham's blessing moved long after Abraham was gone. Isaac's blessing shaped nations he never saw. Jacob's words traveled centuries beyond his lifetime. This should bring deep peace to aging hearts. Your faith is not limited to your remaining years. It moves ahead of you. We often think in days and years. God thinks in generations. The patriarch spoke not only to his child, but into a future he would never witness. That is why God often uses older believers. They are less attached to immediate results, and more anchored in eternal trust. If you have learned to wait on God, you are already thinking the way God thinks. A patriarchal blessing was powerful, because it was supported by a faithful life. Words spoken at the end of life carry weight because they are backed by experience. You cannot fake this kind of authority. It is earned quietly over time. Years of prayer. Years of obedience. Years of holding on when letting go felt easier. God honors that. Many older believers feel unseen. The world moves fast. The noise grows louder. The quiet ones are often overlooked. But Scripture shows something different. The most significant blessings in the Bible were often spoken in private rooms, on quiet beds, with only family present. God does not need crowds to release eternal things. When a patriarch blessed his children, he was saying, I trust God with what I cannot control. This is especially meaningful in later years. There comes a time when control naturally loosens. Blessing teaches us that this is not loss. It is faith in action. You are not abandoning responsibility. You are placing it into God's hands. Even when your body remains still, your prayers travel freely. The patriarchal blessing reminds us that spiritual movement does not require physical strength. Your whispered prayers at night, your quiet trust during lonely hours, they matter more than you realize. Heaven records faithfulness, not speed. If you sometimes wonder, have I done enough? Did my life matter? Listen carefully. A life that walks with God does not need to shout to be heard. Your faith has already shaped lives in ways you may never fully see, and that is enough. Even if no one asks you to bless them, even if you feel forgotten, you still carry blessing within you. Because blessing is not a moment. It is a presence. And God has not withdrawn His presence from you. Let your heart rest here. Breathe slowly. These words are meant to settle deep within you. Like a prayer you have known for many years. Even before you learned its words. There is a kind of faith that only time can produce. It is not dramatic. It is not loud. It does not need to prove itself. It is the faith of those who have stayed with God through seasons of joy and seasons of silence. The patriarchal blessing reflects this kind of faith. God entrusted the final words of direction to those who had endured the longest. If you have remained faithful through many years, God sees that endurance as honor. Have you noticed how Scripture often becomes quieter near the end of a faithful life? Fewer miracles, fewer battles, more reflection, more blessing. This is not decline, it is refinement. God slows the pace, so the heart can speak clearly. For older believers, this is not something to resist, it is something to receive. Patriarchs did not bless from comfort alone. They blessed after loss, after disappointment, after waiting longer than expected. This is why their words carried authority. If your faith has been tested by pain, your blessing is deeper. What costs you much has value in God's hands. One of the holy tasks of aging is remembering God's faithfulness. The patriarch often reminded his children of what God had already done, not to boast, but to anchor faith. Your memories of God's goodness are a gift to others. When you speak them, you keep faith alive. Some people speak of old age as if it were borrowed time. Scripture does not. Every season of life is intentionally placed by God. If you are still here, God is not finished. The patriarchal blessing teaches us that the final chapters often carry the deepest meaning. Physical strength fades naturally, but wisdom does not have to. In fact, wisdom often grows clearer as distractions fall away. God values wisdom more than ability. If you have learned to trust God quietly, you are rich in what heaven values. You do not need to rush your remaining days. You do not need to prove anything. The patriarch did not hurry his blessing. He spoke when the time was right. God is not measuring your output. He is honoring your faithfulness. Some blessings will never be traced back to you. Someone will pray because you once prayed. Someone will trust God because you once trusted Him. You may never know, but God knows, and that is enough. Let your heart stay here for a moment. Now let your heart be still. The patriarchal blessing teaches us this gentle truth. God does not rush faithful lives. He honors them at the end of their journey. The patriarchs did not fear what came next. They rested because they knew God had been faithful. If you are tired now, it is not weakness. It is the sign of a life well carried. You were never meant to hold everything forever. The blessing was the moment when trust replaced effort. God is not counting what you can still do. He is remembering how faithfully you walked. Your prayers were heard. Your tears were seen. Your quiet faith mattered. Even now, your life still speaks blessing into generations you may never see. So rest your heart. The same God who walked with the patriarchs is walking with you, and in His hands, your journey is complete. Your faith is honored, and your peace is secure.